Welcome to the Boomer Technician channel. I'm in Morrilton, Arkansas. We arrived last night and I'm shooting this in the city park. In a few minutes, we're going to head up the hill to the Petit Jean Car Show, which has been going on for a number of years at the Museum of Automobiles here in Morrilton. I don't know a whole lot about the car show, but I did see some information on the museum on the interwebs, and there's some interesting cars there. There's stuff going back to the brass era, all the way up to some modern muscle. So we'll get some footage of that while we're there and continue on our journey of 50 car shows in 50 states. On the way to the car show, I stopped at the Triangle Car Wash and actually had a problem in one of the self-serve bays. The air drying hose separated while I was using it, but the operator was nice enough to set me up in another bay, and I managed to finish up the drying, and now I'm ready to go up to the car show. So props to the Triangle Car Wash in Morrilton, Arkansas. Well, before we continue, I want to correct one thing. I said earlier we were going to the Petit Jean Car Show. Turns out it's the Petit Jean Car Show, named after Petit Jean State Park here in Arkansas, which is named after a young lady who passed away many years ago. And she's got a very interesting history. I'll link up to that in the description so you can read her history if you're interested. But in the meanwhile, we're at her gravesite and overlook, and what a great overlook it is. Well, the Petit Jean Car Show is in the woods here in Arkansas, up in the Petit Jean State Park. They've got a swap meet associated with the car show. And of course, we've got that automobile museum. We'll take a closer look at that a little further on through the video. But as you can see, there's lots of cars and lots of things for sale here in the swap meet portion. This Jeepster wasn't in the car show, but it's certainly an interesting rig. And I was walking through the swap meet, saw it, and had to get a picture. Seems like I'm taking some footage of a tree, but I'm actually just zooming in on that fender step pad to help you get in the back seat. Jeepster nameplate was an interesting experiment. They were kind of going for a sporty SUV, and the market obviously wasn't ready, but it makes for a neat look back. Well, they were smart enough to put the swap meet in the trees, but the car show itself is out here in the bright sunshine, so we're going to get a little baked taking some video today. So this post-war BMW Ascenic caught my eye. It's an interesting car, and you'll hear me explaining to one of the ladies attending the car show just what makes it interesting. You see the handle by the headlight there?
Hell yeah.
Whole front of the car opens up. It's like a phone booth. To be fair, it's a little short to be a phone booth, but at least it's a four-wheeler. Some of the Asetas only had three. Well, there we have it, the peak tail fin year of this 59 Cadillac, even more distinctive as a two-door coupe. This was the height of it, and from there on, they just kept shrinking. A lot of people think about the Woody wagon and the California surf scene, and they picture a Model A station wagon with the wood sides, but looking at the radiator grill here, you can see it's got a bow tie because this one is a Chevrolet. And so the show delivers. Not only do we have that Chevy Woody wagon, but here we have a genuine Ford's Woody wagon as well. So, surfing USA. Boy, this Packard caught my eye. What a great looking car. This is a late 30s model, and it's an interesting model. During the 20s and the 30s, there were three really good car brands competing with Cadillac and Lincoln, and that was the three Ps, Peerless, Pierce Arrow, and Packard. And Peerless and Pierce Arrow both fell away in the Depression, but Packard made some interesting moves, including this 120 model, which was kind of designed to compete with the Buicks of the world. And it was a fairly successful car, but obviously didn't save Packard overall. Here you can see the straight 8 under the hood, and then this beautiful interior. And just a great car and a great car show. And here's a contemporary of that Packard, might be a little bit older. This is a Stearns Knight, which was notable for its sleeve valve engine. And I don't know a whole lot about sleeve valve engines, except they don't have poppet valves. And here's a look at the engine. And outside of some interesting oiling lines, it looks pretty conventional. But inside the block, those sleeve valves ran off some sort of a crankshaft. Once again, a fantastic car that you rarely ever see. Well, I've talked a lot about how I like these 68 to 72 A bodies, and here's a pair, one Buick, one Olds. both convertibles. So that's hitting all the right marks for me. But unfortunately, once again, that Buick's painted in that kind of sickly yellow. No. Here's a 39 Lincoln Continental. Well, a lot of people don't realize that Henry Ford's son, Edsel, was instrumental in getting this car designed and built. He had a great eye for design, but he hired another guy to do some fantastic work on this. And, of course, a well-known car in the enthusiasts. I don't film all the Camaros and Mustangs and shoebox Chevys that I see at car shows, but this one is a really nice car, and the 56 Chevy was a really great car to own, and this one has got a manual transmission, and you know I love that. Well, we all come to the car show world through a different path. In this case, a young lady saw a pink Barracuda. She said, I've got to have that car. So she acquired it, and then she started bringing it to car shows. So for each one of us, the path's a little different, but we all end up at the car show. In 1950, Chevy put a hardtop roofline on the Chevrolet, and it looks a bit like a mini Cadillac. So I thought I'd capture this very nice example, just like so many of the cars at this car show. Let me tell you, I was super excited to find this Opel GT. I haven't seen one in probably 10 years, and this one in the red looks really good. It was a mini Corvette, but instead of pop-up headlights, it's got rollover headlights. They're manually operated. There's a lever under the dash, and you just grab it and pull it to work the headlights open and closed. And that Corvette styling carries on to the interior of the car. GM based the Opel GT on the Mako Shark Corvette. Of course, it's about a 5/8 scale size to the original, but as you can see from the back shot here, it looks pretty much like a mini Corvette, and it's got the Get Out of Vietnam window sticker for an era-appropriate touch on this great-looking car. And here's another great-looking car, a four-door 59 Edsel. Ford offered the Edsel in 4 trim levels: Corsair, Pacer, Citation, and Ranger, and 2 body styles. One had the Ford roofline and one had the Mercury roofline. This one has the Mercury roofline, and as we zoom in here, we see it's a Ranger. So I think this is one of the upper trim levels that Ford offered that year. Right next to the Edsel, we've got a DeSoto, another American nameplate that didn't really make it into the 60s. But we've got this one lowered, modified, and shown up at the car show. I've seen a couple of shoebox Chevys turned into an El Camino type vehicle, but I typically don't pay a lot of attention to them because they kind of look like backyard hack jobs. But whoever put this one together did a really good job. They've got the Nomad tailgate in the back there, which looks great, and then the B-pillar closely replicates what the Nomad looked like. And that back window is out of a 5th generation El Camino, and so it fits really nicely. It's not a squared off piece of plexiglass, and the bodywork is just fantastic on this car. Matter of fact, it drew a pretty big crowd, and it was a little difficult to get a shot of it without all the folks standing in front of us. Looking at the bucket seats and that headrest pushed forward, it might be a little tight for a guy like me who's over 6 foot, but beyond that, perfect. I talked earlier about Edsel Ford leading the styling on the Lincoln Continental, the original Lincoln Continental, but he also pretty much styled by himself the Model A. It looks a lot like the Lincoln that he'd had a hand in styling a couple of years earlier. As a matter of fact, lots of folks called the Model A the Baby Lincoln, and it's certainly a title that fits. And here's another exciting original vehicle, original down to its factory wheel covers. This little Ford Bronco is a very, very nice ride. These originally came out with a 6, but they very quickly shoehorned a V8 in, and you can kind of see the shoehorning because it's got that offset air cleaner to fit. The interior on this is very nice, and then when we come around to the back of the truck, you'll see something fairly unique. It's got the half cab, making for a mini pickup, but this is a factory component from Ford and a fairly rare rig. Also a rare rig is this Dodge pickup. I know a bunch of Mopar fans who'd love to pick this truck up. Once again, a car in fantastic condition, bright shiny paint, bright shiny chrome, everything on it right. We're going to take a look under the hood here. Also, everything original. This isn't some resto mod with a big hot engine in here. It's got the original flathead Dodge built the car around. And then moving on to the interior, just a basic workplace, but all in absolutely perfect condition. And frankly, it's hard to find a car in this car show that's not in perfect condition. This is not my favorite generation of the GM A-bodies, but it is probably my favorite version of this generation, the Olds Cutlass. And this particular one is a 442. And as you can see from this engine bay shot, it's got a serious cold air induction system. And as we step back and look under the bumper, we've got two, one on each side, of these monstrous openings to pull that cold air into the engine. And just a fantastic car. Shows perfect on the interior, and I wouldn't mind having one. And here's a Jeep Comanche. This is not a Gladiator. This is a Eliminator. And it's got the fine 4.0 fuel-injected engine under the hood. I wouldn't mind owning one of these pickups, particularly this one, because as we look into the interior, well, not in this shot, but if we come around the other side, yep, it's got a stick shift, which is how I like my trucks. So a couple of years ago, I just would have walked by a T-Bird, but nowadays they're starting to get a little thin on the ground at car shows. And this one's got the white roof and the white paint job, just like the one in American Graffiti. Wrong year, this one's a 57. The Graffiti car was a 56, but close enough. A lot of people mourn the loss of Studebaker. They went out of business about 1964 and had some interestingly styled cars over the years, but they also had a pretty sharp-looking pickup, and here's a great example with a V8. And here's a shot of that Studebaker from the back. And with that, let's wrap up the car show and head over to the car museum. Well, as I said earlier, I don't know a whole lot about the museum, but from the outside, the building's pretty impressive, you know. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's inside and see if that impresses as well. Well, I gotta say, to me, it's a heck of a car museum. I'm not sure if the cars are great cars or not, but they're presented very well. It's a beautiful building and some beautiful cars. Well, we saw that Studebaker pickup at the car show, and here at the museum, we've got a Hudson pickup. Well, it's very stylish. I'm thinking this is late 30s. Well, that was a swing and a miss. It turns out 47 and was due for 1947. There you go. Well, we saw that 53 Chevy hardtop in the car show, and here we have a 54 Chevy two-door sedan. You can see the difference in the glass line that's got the pillars around the door, so a little bit less classic than that hardtop, and a very nice car. I'll just put this one up with a comment, "Hey boys, we're in Arkansas." Well, it's not the biggest museum in town, but it's got lots of cars, including brass era stuff. This is a 1910 Flanders, which I think turned into the EMF car company and ended up under Studebaker somehow. And you got to take a look at my history and confirm that. So there you go. We talked about the Model A being a baby Lincoln in the car show, and here in the museum we've got a Model A town car, which is about as baby Lincoln as you're ever going to ride. And we'll follow up that Model A with a couple of Ford wagons. Here's a full-bodied wagon, and then we've got this station wagon with the roll-up side panels that are basically just a big tent. Well, we're seeing a bunch of doppelgangers today. We saw that nice Packard in the car show, and here's another Packard in the museum, but they've still got that classic Packard grill. And yet another classic Packard grill, this time on a 39. Packards everywhere today. As are Willis Jeepsters. I didn't expect to see a second one after filming that one out in a swap meet, but here we are. And this particular one is extremely original. I'm not a Jeepster fan, but I think I know a couple of people who are. Well, we didn't have a retractable at the car show, but here we go. A 1959 Skyliner in the museum. So once again, we scored on a retractable. You know, I talk about these retractables all the time. We should probably point out a couple of features that makes them notable. We've got the cut line at the top of the roof there, so that front edge can fold under and fit under the trunk. And then as we move to the back and zoom out a little bit, we've got this incredibly long deck lid that opens up the wrong direction for the top to slide into. Well, I thought I'd take a picture of this Dodge Royal Lancer. This is a car that you don't see every day. That's kind of unusual. Very nice car, convertible, top of the lines, but ultimately just a Dodge. Well, we've got King Richard's Grand Prix out here in the front lobby, and if you zoom in there, you'll see King Richard stopped by for a visit. Hey, King. Well, we'll zoom into the museum's fountain to close up this episode, and I have to say, any museum with a fountain is probably going to be pretty impressive inside, and this one surely was. So, with that, let's all remember, no matter where you go, there you are. Here's something else I found in the Swap Meet. You don't need a Honda generator when you've got a creative mind.